Oh, it still goes live. Let's see here. I hope is my mic working? I had some trouble a minute ago with the microphone. Not too sure if that trouble has been resolved. If anybody in the chat room, hello, hello, hello. Is the volume working? I think it is. I'm getting a little flashing light telling me that. Anyway, there's a couple of you in here. We'll burn up a couple of minutes, see if a few more watch. See if that notification system works. It probably doesn't, but never fear. Sarge is here. I did catch a vast majority of Cy Ray being interviewed there by the custody queens. Is that what they're called? I can't remember. But yeah, interesting what he said. I think if you go back and look at just some of my most recent videos, you'll see that him and I concur on a whole bunch of things. And, you know, I mean, there's things that we don't agree on, but I think there's some very, very major points that he makes that I think a lot of us need to pay a hell of attention to. I started out in true crime in February 2023. And this was on Dago, True Crime Cafe with Dago. But if you go back to that time period, if you ever had the inkling to try to verify what I'm sharing with you, that's fine. I said in the very beginning of this case that this is so effed up that even if they've got the right guy, their work is so inadequate and so unprofessional and so broken that you're gonna let the guy that committed the crime go away free. I said this case is so bad that I hope he did commit the crime, and all of their Keystone Cop behavior sets him free. And then, you know, I took a lot of slack for that, but I took that position because I could see how badly this case had been presented, how badly it had been put together, how just inept all the documents and all the arguments that they were making were. And I knew that way in the very beginning. So let me just say that on that particular perspective, I completely agree with Cy Ray on that. And there's a few other things that I've said that he's actually almost word for word stated all by himself, and he has no idea who I am. But being one of them, I always thought, and I never ever did not acknowledge that Brian Kohlberger was a fantastic suspect. But he was never treated as a suspect. He was always treated as the one guy that did it. And everything they did, they shaped to fit that conclusion. And that's where the police work is Keystone Copish. And so I know a lot of people are out there, they're wrestling with his analysis. And his analysis really has been a lot of my analysis over the years, because there was no reason not to look at Brian Kohlberger. And he makes that very clear. Whether you agree that this is car or not isn't the issue. A suspect is a suspect because there's something about them that makes them suspiciously involved or suspiciously connected. And, you know, I never disagreed with that, and I actually said that way in the beginning, that Brian Kohlberger should have been brought in. He should have been asked for a buccal swab. They should have asked if they could look at his car. They should have done that in the beginning. They handled this investigation in such a shit-shoddy way that I don't know, if not for Hitler, where I think Cy Ray and I agree on Hitler's rulings. So many of these rulings that when you use in hindsight, or even when they were making them, some of them were fair, but most of them weren't. You know, this guy's saying, well, these other potential suspects, they don't have a white car. So, you know, so some of what Hitler said, and most recently, before I left streaming for a year on this case, when everybody was saying he signed away his right to appeal, I was the first one, I think, to point out, or at least one of many, let's say one of many people that pointed out, that in fact, Ann Taylor's, the best thing she ever said was that with this new evidence released to her, that she doesn't have enough time to review it before trial, and that she can't provide an adequate defense without a continuation, which was denied by Hitler. Big mistake by him. But if Ann Taylor did a lot wrong, that one particular statement that she made on the record in court after a discovery demand that she'd been fighting for more than 2 years was finally dumped on her a week before a trial, you know, let me just tell you that's probably the best thing Ann Taylor did for Brian Kohlberger. I think he's depicting information in a way that law enforcement looked at it, and he's law enforcement. The coincidences of his repetitive travel, right? A lot of what you guys may disagree with on Cy-Ray, it's fair to disagree with the guy. A lot of points in the case he's not really fully up to snuff on. But some of the key things the key takeaways that he's pointed out, if why I've said over and over again, I'm not arguing for Brian's innocence or guilt. I've always been arguing against the case itself and the way the case was assembled and the way they executed their jurisprudence against the guy. They didn't do their due diligence. They didn't do what they were supposed to do. That arrest warrant should never have been issued right from the jump. There was nothing in that arrest warrant that indicated Brian Kohlberger's involvement. Nothing. That shouldn't have been part of the arrest warrant. And if the IgG DNA couldn't have been used, then they had to find a different way to get this kid. And they didn't even try. They ran with this haphazard fucking high jump case that just the kid ended up pleading guilty to, but he really had no choice. And I'm kind of glad. Hey, Miss Priminate. I'm kind of glad in the end that some of the things, well, a lot of what he said, I concur with, and I've been making those points for a long time. I get a little bit more into the weeds when it comes to some of the theories on what might have happened based on only the data given us, right? I mean, I know there's blood across the street, but there's no way to prove that blood's connected to that night nor to this crime. And so I don't jump onto videos and start looking at that stuff. I do suspect the crime took place at a different time. But the argument he makes for that particular time is a pretty sensible argument. Doesn't mean it's true. But the argument of that 4 o'clock hour and the behavior of the occupants of the home, and that Molly McMichael's food being delivered, and then a sudden change in the behavior of all the phones and the people connected to those phones shortly after 4 a.m., and the movement of a car. Now, whether the car, I don't think any car's involved at all. You guys know my thoughts on that. However, I think when you daisy chain those things together, you would be kind of retarded if you're in the middle of looking at this case not to see a pattern. The pattern doesn't prove guilt. The pattern shows a circumstantial pieces of information that may or may not tell the story correctly. But again, it's something you couldn't ignore. So I definitely agree. I've always agreed that Mr. Kohlberger was probably the best suspect they ever had. I learned something new in the parts that I listened to, that the 4 brothers were actually part of Brian Kohlberger's family tree. I didn't really, I've heard that, but I've never seen anybody come out and confirm it that easily, that straightforward. So that there's another piece of information that I'm glad that we have now. And as I've said over and over again, I think that there's something else going on in that town for these 4 murders to be the murders they are. I just can't wrap my head around being it. They targeted Kaylee, and then Zana was an accidental witness, and all 4 of these kids are gone. I have a real hard time wrapping my head around that. Not to say that isn't possible, but I have a hard time thinking that those chips actually line up to that conclusion and the information that we've been exposed to. Now, he's had information exposed to him that he hasn't shared with us, but I think also when you listen to him, you'll see he contradicts Twiz, right? He contradicts Twiz in his analysis of his own work. What else has he done? And he lays out why they focused in on Brian. Yeah, no, his book is, like he said, his book has got nothing to do with that. His book has got nothing to do with Brian Kohlberger specifically, other than to show just how badly that case was handled. And I really think that Judge Hippler himself made it impossible for the defense. And a lot of his rulings, that I think his rulings shouldn't have been the rulings he made. And he put them in a box. I mean, there was no way out. And I also think that a jury may have, as he says, seen the kind of information and how it didn't daisy chain. Yeah, Twiz was mistaken. I don't know that he ever, I'm not saying Twiz made it up or Twiz is a liar, but Twiz, anybody with the name Twizzlestick, you got to be a little suspicious. What else? I'm not overly disturbed by what he shared. I'm just not. And I'm trying to recall, because I listened to it for quite a while with the custody queens, and they did ask some very pertinent questions. And his synopsis of the events based on the information that he sees and how he looks at it is reasonable. But then again, so are other people's synopsises of looking at the same information and saying, okay, well then show us some direct evidence. And then when he comes back and says it was on the knife sheet, and that knife sheet that we now can look at as being mishandled, blah, 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 the chain of custody and all of that is exactly what he's referring to when he talks. Yeah. I don't know about I'm reading the chat, and yeah, the Huawei alibi was a lie, but no answer. Look, and I again, they say there's no evidence of stalking, and they talk about prior behaviors, but then we find out prior behaviors are much more extensive than what Cy Ray has alluded to. He's in a new area and he's driving around the new area. The question is, when he lived in Pennsylvania, did he do the same thing? And I think that's a good question. I don't know how supportable that is as fact. However, I wouldn't be surprised. We know that Brian Koberger's selfies, 3,800 of them, went to his family. So that thumbs up was nothing unusual. That was part of his behavior. I think when you do a behavioral analysis of it, if you just lock it to Washington and Idaho, I don't think that's doing a fair, full behavioral analysis of the guy. And I think we've heard information that goes beyond what Cy Ray was talking about when he says he drove those areas. He knew those areas, right? No, I don't think that's exactly true, that Cy Ray, there may be a little bit of truth to that in that we're on a team and we stick with our team, and I'm talking about, let me get in there, I'll be able to post. I want to post up on the screen. Somebody's phone's people. I think that you're making a mistake to think that everything he said doesn't hold any value when you make a comment. And I think that's where, as a community, we get called conspiracy theorists, and then we get into these disagreements and debates and arguments. And I think law enforcement and the way he views the circumstantial evidence is what he was trained. And yet you can almost see that that's not really some egregious conspiracy theory, to look at the activity of the phones of the residents, to look at the activity of what's going around in the neighborhood, and then the activity drop off when that car finally parks. So I don't think that's an unreasonable observation. Honestly, I think if you looked at it like that from the very beginning, right, and we put all of that together as a way to view things, I think we might all say, yeah, even though I say I highly suspect there was no car there, it's obvious after listening to him why they suspected that car's involvement, and it makes sense. It makes sense, right? So that's either real bad luck on the behalf of Brian Koberger, or Brian Koberger is, I had said in the very beginning, and others sort of agreed, may have been a driver that dropped somebody off. And that's why nothing on the driver's side of the vehicle, the brake pedal, the gas pedal, the carpet, the door, the seat belt, the shifter, the key. That may be why there was no transfer. And in the statement of blood transfer, I do take an extraordinarily different opinion than Cy Ray does. That we are not on the same page. I don't give a fuck about footprints. Footprints is not my main concern when it comes to transfer. And I think, in a sense, footprints have been pointed out And I think because Mr. What's his name there? Who's the, not Wickham, but the other guy there, Turvey. Because Turvey pointed the footprints. But let me just say what I'm concerned with isn't a footpath necessarily, although that did hold my attention like it did a lot of other people's. But let me tell you what really holds my attention after listening to Cy Ray. Because he like a lot of people wants to have their cake and eat it too. So he has these excuses or these rationale that there would be no blood trail. And he accepts this rationale without any evidence. And then he goes on to a conclusion that's based on a rationale without any evidence, but that's his conclusion. In other words, he's pro that Brian was in that car, that's Brian's car, with no real evidence, right? But that's his conclusion. But when it comes to the blood, there's no footprints, there's no sign of cleanup. And he tries to make these explanations as to, if it was a carpet, well, there wasn't a carpet there. It was all hardwood floors. And where I take real issue with him is it's got nothing to do with your footprints. It's got nothing to do with your footprint. If I start stabbing you with the knife that they claim was used in this crime 54 fucking times, and there's blood all over the room, and there's blood all over the person that I'm fighting with, I mean, what the fuck? I mean, how do I not get transfer all over my entire fucking body? My hair, my face, my hands, my sleeves, my elbows, my balls, for fuck's sakes. That's the transfer. It's not necessarily that it didn't get it on the bottom of his shoes. That's, I kind of, if you guys can see, got real upset with Cy Ray when he went off the rails with that fucking conclusion. Because it's not just the shoe prints that you're going to find. Look at what happened to poor Xana. Oh my God, up close and personal. Do you mean to suggest, and this is what I would say to him, not for anything, but you're a smart guy, Mr. Ray, but are you suggesting some guy with 6 foot long fucking arms stood and stabbed her on the ground like that? These big, long 6 foot arms were just reaching down and stabbing her while she laid on her back. You can't be saying that. What you got to be saying is somebody was mounting her. Somebody was holding her down. Somebody was sitting on her. Somebody was stabbing her with this knife with a vicious fucking to kill her. And it's that blood. Where the fuck did that blood go, Cy? Why wouldn't you even consider that there was a cleanup? Because where did that blood go? I don't give a fuck about the guy's shoes. But let's be clear. It's not the bottom of his shoes that I'm even worried about. Because I can tell you right now, I can kneel down on top of any woman, okay? Go kneel down on the floor, and your soles are pointed behind you. Yeah, and it really stressed me out when he was saying that about the cleanup, because the cleanup has got nothing to do with the soles of your shoes. You're in combat with some young woman. You're taking her life. You're stabbing the hell out of her. Your person is going to be covered in her blood. Where did that fucking cast off go? You mean to tell me that person, what did he do? Squeegee himself? Was this person flat, built like a pane of glass, and he just squeegeed himself onto the floor? I don't care if he stepped in any blood or not. That's the point. Man, that really bothers me that he said that. I wish I'd had 10 minutes asking the guy, explain yourself. Where the other blood that was on this killer, where did it go? I'm not even talking about the car. When he left Xana's room. No. So that's what I mean. I'm more in line with Dr. Turvey's analysis, only because Cy Ray is limited as his, and he's supposed to be a man that's been involved with murder. And the idea that you can have a bloodletting of not, listen, are there times where a knife is used in the commission of murder and there is no transfer? Yeah, there is. But there was never a time where somebody got into a balled out fucking brawl, hacking somebody with a fucking knife with a puddle of blood on the floor, looked like you spilt a gallon of milk. There's never been a time where that kind of a knife fight didn't result in transfer when the perpetrator left the scene. That's physically impossible. Unless the perpetrator took the time to either clean themselves, which folks, then we can look at the cast off in the contact, or I don't even know how you could be covered in something that would give you the capacity to get that covering off. And that covering, see, that's the problem. With every layer you put on, you still have to shed that layer to move through that house. What did he do? Stand in the doorway? Well, how did none of it splatter off? You know what I'm saying? It's just, nobody in the God's green earth can tell me that poor Xana, that battle didn't result in a cast off and a bathing of blood between both victim and assailant. There's no way anybody can make that argument. And that's basically what Cy-Ray is saying. The assailant took no blood on anywhere, and he didn't step in any. And yet the bloodletting from Xana, just her own bloodletting, just that one victim, was gruesomely horrifying and significant. So let me just say, I do take big issue with that about Cy-Ray. His other analysis, though, aren't unreasonable. They're not improbable. Calling Brian Kohlberger the most likely suspect is fair. I never said the kid wasn't a suspect. I always agreed with that right from the beginning, that he was a suspect. Fantastic suspect. But then I disagreed this whole time with the probable cause affidavit, with not having a preliminary hearing, with them being secretly indicted, with a lot of decisions Ann was making. I just didn't accept it. I didn't think she was doing the right thing. It would have to be footprints. Well, no, listen, Klopp. Listen. Don't get caught up on the footprints. The perpetrator was covered in blood. Forget the footprints. Whether there's footprints, you could have just taken those shoes off and carried them with you. Do you understand? I could just take my shoes off and carry them with me and walk in my socks that didn't have any blood on. But everywhere else has blood, including the fucking shoes that I'm carrying. You could easily eliminate footprints. But what about the bloody trail from all of Xana's blood that you're covered in? That's where I take issue with law enforcement. That's where I take issue with Cy-Ray. There's no reasonable observation that you could conclude that doesn't include somebody not just cleaning themselves up, but cleaning up that area that they had to walk through. And it wouldn't require you seeing big, I mean, he thinks people, it's a hardwood floor. You take a Swiffer, a wet Swiffer. You pour water on the floor. You mop it up. You use towels. How come they found no towels in the house? Well, that's a question that needs to be looked into. Nobody looked into it. So could the floors have been cleaned? Sure. And I completely agree with Turvey on that. And I really don't. I do give exception to the idea of footprints. There's no doubt there was movement. There's no doubt someone stepped in blood in that room, whether it be Xana or someone else, the victim. It definitely wasn't Ethan. So a perpetrator, one or more perpetrators definitely stepped in that blood. But you can explain away the footprints by just taking off your shoes, right? Getting to the end of the bloodletting and pulling off your shoes and then wiping the floor, right? Because I think right by her door it was clean, right in front of her door. I think once you broke the threshold of Xana's room, that's where the blood started. But there was none outside that door. So that would make sense to me. But I can't really tear into Cy-Ray for his analysis and his opinions. I think he makes analysis that, in all fairness, I didn't thoroughly consider. But on the other hand, let me say he said it many times. He's a good suspect, likely involved. The DNA is hard to explain and get away based on what he knows about the DNA. And yet we all have all these different stories about the DNA. He's saying it was on the snap and around the snap on the leather, which would make sense because that snap is closed with somebody's thumb. That would make perfect sense. I don't agree with him making the argument that Brian bought that knife. There's no evidence Brian ever stopped or observed or did anything to interact with these individuals. How did he know about that house? There's no evidence to support that he knew about it or who lived there or what was going on there. There's so much that they don't have. That their story is something that it's a conspiracy theory, no different than when we say there were 2 or more perps. When I say I look at that and the facts are telling me there was more than 1 perp. As a matter of fact, I truly think that there were more than 2, at least 2 perps in each room. I think that unequivocally, and that doesn't mean I'm right. The timeline I disagree with too. I don't think, but see, he eliminates the cleanup. But this is where I diverge from him. You can't have that much activity and not leave anything behind other than just a few diluted fucking splats around. Matter of fact, the diluted blood itself, right? The diluted blood itself is indicative of a cleaning of at least whatever it was that the cast off came from. At the very least, to say that the walls have been cleaned and the cast off was diluted by what had cleaned the walls before the cast off ever hit it, no, I'm sorry, I don't buy that at all. That's another thing I take issue with him. The diluted cast off, to me, in no way presents that the walls have been cleaned and the cleaning agent got mixed in with the fucking. You think those girls are cleaning walls? No. No. And what the hell? How often do you clean your walls? I don't know. In the kitchen. Do you walk up and down your stairway and wipe the walls down? Not often. Rarely. Maybe in a spring cleaning. So I do take issue. I take serious issue with him saying that there's no evidence of a cleanup. Because I think 2 things. A, there's no way you could have done that to them young adults and not walk away with blood on you. That's one. And I don't even give a fuck about footprints. You know, you could have left your shoes outside the door. You could have been a real nice fucking, right? Nice and proper fucking killer. Taking your shoes off before you went in there and killed these people. Perfect. Great. Now what do you do with all the blood that's all over you? How do you get rid of that? How do you keep that from dripping? How do you keep a trail of blood on you from transferring to the floor? No. All right. I ranted on that enough. I definitely disagree with Tyree on the cleanup. I think the fact that they never even considered it, that they didn't check any of the drains, that they didn't take the sink fucking traps apart, that they didn't do anything like that. And they did what he did, which is there's no footprints. And then here's the other thing too. Kind of shocking. I mean, he makes that argument and then he supports them tearing the car apart and finding nothing in the car. Well, if you're going to suggest that car was used, that perp cleaned that car, and that's why there's nothing in the car, and not take that same reasoning to the crime scene, you need a smack in the back of your fucking head. Because you can't have this both ways. You can't have Kohlberger cleaning his car, or Kohlberger protecting his car, right? And doing all this other stupid shit, and then committing this crime and not leaving a fucking a heavy fucking bloodletting from those rooms out through the hallways of the staircases, out across the kitchen. I can't even imagine. We all know Dexter does, but how does Dexter do that? Well, he coats the whole fucking room in plastic, takes all the blood and DNA with him. Well, that didn't happen here. I mean, so, look at the extremes that Dexter was going to. There's no way that's present in this crime scene. So, yeah. If you guys want me to get on board with Bash and Ray, I can do that, but only on certain issues. I don't disagree with Brian Kohlberger being the suspect at all. I totally agree that the police not only violated protocol, that the police violated, they went beyond the constitutional limits to do this. They lied. When they knew they lied, they didn't fix it. Yeah, I think he protects the defendants because he's concluded that Brian committed the crime. And I suggest to you that Brian may have an involvement in the crime. Brian may even have done the crime. But the way this case was investigated, the way they got to Brian, the way they did with the data they did collect, the things they did and didn't do is horrific. Right? And I was early on, I said that on Dago's channel, I think a lot of people wanted him to kick me out because I was a guest and I was saying, I hope this kid did it because this case is going to get dismissed because of all the shenanigans these police perform. And I was saying that right in the beginning because, listen, I'm what they call a jail lawyer, okay? So I'm a jailhouse lawyer. That's where I got my legal experience, was by being arrested for a crime and put in jail. And I spent my time in the law library. I spent my time in the law library for not just my crimes, but cellmates. And I was a very successful jailhouse lawyer. I think of the three people I helped, two people, including myself, so that I'm not counting myself, but three other people, individuals, I got two of them straightened out. And they were released. One of them, no. One of them, couldn't help that. So I did say that the only interview he's doing, and he's done with it. Yeah, I don't blame him. But I honestly want you guys to consider that when he as a policeman lines up the information about the car, about the phone usage, about the DNA, about the car driving away, all of that, when you line all that up, a reasonable person would have to consider the involvement of that vehicle. You know, we're standing on firm ground as Americans saying, well, show me evidence and then explain the crime scene, explain the behavior of these two girls. I don't buy that these two girls were victims. I don't buy it at all. If you're that worried and you're that concerned, why didn't you call the fraternity then? Why the hell didn't you call the fraternity and call Hunter then? Show me calls between 4 in the morning and noon the next day that you tried to call people to come over to that house, or that you fled the scene. Why the fuck didn't you run away? See, there's just nothing's changed, Friday, with how this case starts at court. It never will. Yeah. I like I said, I don't have any capacity, and I think it's kind of foolish for a lot of the streamers out here that think they're going to solve this crime, or they're putting out all this information and getting all of us involved. I dropped back for a long time, then I came back, and I'm kind of stepping back a little bit. As more information comes out, I'll come forward and have a stream. I'm as interested in the truth as anyone else, but I think this comes right down to what I said in the beginning. Whether he did this or not, the performance of that investigation, the lack of doing it correctly, is going to be what tears this apart. It's literally going to tear it apart. Oh, they committed the crimes in the nude. Well, okay, then what about all the blood that was in their hair? And what did they do after they committed the crimes in the nude? Did they get dressed in black and put on a balaclava and walk out of the house? I guess. I mean, how the hell do you keep all of that blood from dripping off of you? Right? Come on, guys. I'm going to say this is kind of graphic, but go stand in the shower, okay? Go stand in the fucking shower and then walk from your bathroom out to your fucking porch and turn around behind you and tell me there isn't fucking blood on the ground. Get out of the shower literally and wipe your feet fucking dry. Right? And then walk through the house and tell me what you find. That's why that really bothers me, that Cy Ray. And that's what bothers me in law enforcement, is that a lot of the mistakes they make, a lot of the tunnel vision they get, is because I don't know, maybe it's the nature of it all. We do it ourselves. That's the fucked up thing. We do it ourselves. We do it ourselves when we look at stuff like this. I do it too. Right? I do it too. And I don't, you know, I don't know. I in some ways I get a little upset, and it kind of, I think that those lawyers tonight on Custody Queens did a pretty fair job. And I think, honestly, what Cy Ray had to share his perspective being different than many of ours, including myself, on certain issues, is what it is. There's just no way to change it. I think though that he's also suffers from a bit of tunnel vision, and the idea that I'll tell you some of the biggest tunnel vision was that. So I made the dumbest comment about the killer standing flat-footed while attacking two people. Yeah, I think the fact that he doesn't even want to try to consider there being more than one perpetrator is definitely a problem. Yeah, it's a different. Yeah, I agree with it. Hey, listen, there's so many things that the people that survived this didn't do that it outweighs the actual facts of who they claim did do it. I do see that this way. I agree. Cy Ray does to an extent. He knows what he's doing. There's no doubt about it. But that doesn't mean. Oh, where were you? I'll put you down. Hang on. I'm trying to get your stuff. It's moving around. Anyway, I have to pay better attention. The jury always starts themselves. It's okay. He made it clear to the record that he hasn't bothered looking at what's been released for public safety. Yeah, that doesn't. But again, I think his synopsis of what he's seen, and what he thinks is pretty clear. He thinks he could have done it. And listen, you can't argue with the fact that Brian Kohlberger, based on the synopsis and the way he laid it out, here's the point. You can't really fault. I think that's one of the future mistakes. Well, look, I think that. Oh, blurry. I hope you're okay if you're just out of the hospital. It feels like being gaslit every time. I agree. How about even worse? We're being gaslit every time they release a document. I mean, I honestly think that if Hitler would have ruled fairly on the motions, and especially that when Anne, when she could see clearly, yeah, he is the perfect candidate for a suspect. I don't doubt. I've always agreed with that. What I never could agree with, Scully, was that the way they handled him. They didn't handle him as a suspect. They handled him as the perpetrator, guilty. And they took these shortcuts and they made these statements and they put together a probable cause affidavit that's completely unfact. It's the most insane thing I've ever seen. That's the problem. And then him saying Brian bought this stuff 9 months before. Listen, I'm not sure that he understands what a lot of us might consider as the conspiracy of setting up Brian. I think what a lot of us are saying are not that they were going to kill these kids and they started planning they were going to blame Brian 9 months before. That's not what any of us have ever said. So I do have a little issue with the way he laid that out. I think what we're saying is that Brian Kohlberger, because of his behavior, which I suspect if you compare that to his life in Pennsylvania, is the same behavior. This going out at night, which his mother said he did. Maybe he didn't have a car in Pennsylvania. I don't know when he bought that damn car, but I bet you if he had a car, he did the same thing. He drove around, he went out hiking, and then he came over here and did the same thing. So behaviorally, the kid's consistent with his entire life. So if you want to argue that the phone usage of these 4 victims was XYZ until 4 a.m., okay, then we have a known behavior and pattern of their phones. But the same thing has to apply to Brian. It has to apply to Brian as an individual, not just for the last few months that he's lived there, but what did he do as an individual? Like when they say, he took a victory picture with his thumb up. Now we know that's not true. 3,800 selfies sent to his family and family members, right? Nothing to listen on his phone. There's no dick pics. There's no chest pic. There's nothing to other people. So I think Cy Ray, is looking at the totality of circumstantial information and coming to the conclusion Brian's guilty. Which in all fairness is the same mistake I think the police made, only in as much as it's not to say that Brian isn't guilty, but to say that that circumstantial evidence is just not rooted in fact. And there are warrants that they applied for based on information that they knew was wrong or found out was wrong and didn't correct. Maps that they made and locations that they claimed that just couldn't be verified. Statements that alluded to the fact he was stalking, which isn't true. Everything that they did to put Brian Koberger in jail was a conundrum. It was a clusterfuck. And it never changed, and they never attempted to correct it. And they just kept adding to it by keeping the lie alive. And they tried to force information to fit into their original lie. And even Steve, just so you guys remember, even Steve said a long time ago, he said, "I'm a man. If I make a mistake, I'll take whatever's coming to me. I'll pay that price." And he goes, "And these guys made mistakes. They don't even hold themselves to account for it." And even Steve, just so Don Claves, who I rarely agree with, was clear when he made that statement a couple of years ago about that investigation. What about his interview with? I wish. Yes, why on earth the sheet said at the MP? Somebody tried, but he didn't know about that. Right. But I'm not hating on Cy Ray. I think his point of view is every bit as effective from the whatever he looked at. His interpretation is his interpretation. I don't begrudge the guy that interprets. Matter of fact, just so you know, I think of anybody that wants to argue that Brian Koberger is guilty, Cy Ray made the most linear fucking argument for it. From his perspective, his argument was linear. Right? Not to say that it was true and perfect, but I honestly think his assessment of the information and the way he daisy chains the data that he has, I don't begrudge the guy's opinion that Brian Koberger is guilty. I don't. Some of these other people claiming Brian wore a shower curtain, Brian came in by a fucking parachute, Brian, these other guilters making up all these fucking stories. I can't have any discussions with people like that. But I think that he's taken a view based on the information he has and his view. I respect his view on that. I don't respect all of his analysis that gets him to that view. I think that he lacks, even though he's pointing at the MPD, I think he makes some of the same mistakes that they make. And he discounts information that's relevant, whether he wants to accept it or not. And the most blatant piece of relevant evidence was this Casper the friendly fucking ghost that did this? I mean, I don't understand. Was Brian Koberger asking Maddie to hold his beer while he was stabbing Kaylee or vice versa? Here, hang on to this fucking wood chipper knife while I go to my kill bag and find a fucking bar to smash your girlfriend's face in. There's just too much fucked up shit in this case to where I think Cy either hasn't seen it or doesn't even want to give it any attention. How do you have at least 3 different weapons and the strangulation of one of the victims that was stabbed and beat to the point of unrecognizability and all the blood lading? Blood would have flown more than 10 feet if not for a wall or a door to catch it. How do you talk about that kind of a vicious attack? Whether it's one attacker or fucking 2. And what did they, I don't even understand. Did this killer have a fucking butler? Did this killer or killers have people standing outside of that room with a sanitation fucking booth? How the fuck did they get rid of all of that blood that they were bathed in after doing what they did to these 4 people? I don't know. Let me see. I'm trying to keep up with the chat at the same time. I know it's a credit card. Yeah. Well, all of us do in a sense too, folks. Let's be fair. And again, I'm not pointing to anybody on the internet, but the more this goes and the more inconsistencies and the more catch-22s, the more people can stream about it, the more people can fucking, they know where their bread is buttered too. That's one of the things that I had that problem in politics too. That's why, folks, I'll never have 150,000 or a million fucking followers. Just simply because I don't find this entertaining. Right? There is no fucking choice in StreamYard for true crime. It's either entertainment or podcast, or there's nothing in here for true crime. And a lot of people will give you that disclaimer. This is for entertainment purposes only. I don't find this very fucking entertaining. Matter of fact, call it and even talk about it being entertaining to me is like gross. So, and I'm just saying that across the board. You know, I mean, and so if you have a stream or whatever, I'm not taking it. I'm not making it personal with any specific person, and I don't begrudge people making any income. I do have my own personal moral compass that says some things are the world is the world, bro. I ain't changing. But to me, this is just isn't entertainment. To me, this isn't worth making any money off from. And even if I had 1 million followers, I still wouldn't want to make any money off of it. So something, an issue like this, you know, it just doesn't seem like the place to do it, or the topics to do it. I think of it more as a puzzle. So. Right, and a puzzle is a form of entertainment. Keep telling myself to walk and keep wanting to know if anyone will talk kind of their thought. No, that never happens. Right? No, we're not brainwashed as sheeple, but we do brainwash ourselves. You know, and I don't know how many people notice this, but if you really want to be honest, the argument that you don't pay attention to the mainstream media, but then you come out here and you pay attention to the mainstream streamers, there's very little light between those two. I don't know how many, and that's even listening to me in all fairness. My only saving grace is I really don't give a fuck if I get followers, and I'm not here to please or entertain you in as much as I do this for my own peace of mind on an issue that I'd like to know the truth too. That's what somebody said a minute ago. Where's that? Somebody said that. I just want to know the truth. So do I. I just would like to know the fucking truth. And then again, and here's more important. That doesn't bother me at all, because in a sense we are conspiracy theorists. But the real catch-22 is the entire case against Brian Kohlberger. If the roles were reversed, they would see their whole case against Kohlberger as a case that's a conspiracy. There's no evidence to support their argument. You know, so I don't find that insulting at all. I mean, in fact, we are conspiracy theorists, and there's nothing that shouldn't be something to be ashamed of. I mean, there's something wrong with this criminal prosecution. There was something wrong with the fucking the Gilgo case up in fucking Rhode Island. There was something wrong with the guy that was convicted in Florida for killing his wife. There's something wrong with the fucking Karen Reed case. There's something wrong with the. Keep going, folks. Look, you know, you want to get into how many fucking cases there's problems with. Look at the most recent Supreme Court ruling is a bunch of fucking bullshit. You come here and spit out a kid, and that kid's a citizen? Are you out of your fucking mind? That's the most unheard of fucking predicament the world has ever heard. That's never been a thing anywhere, ever. As a matter of fact, it's a slap in the face to black Americans. The 14th Amendment was to provide citizenship to fucking children of slaves. Okay? They didn't come here of their own free will. Those people were dragged in fucking chains. And then once they eliminated slavery, they had to do something with these people. These people had to automatically be given citizenship. I mean, there were generations of these folks that were in chains. They don't know where the fuck their original family came from. They didn't speak no English. They didn't keep no fucking ledger. There were no notes. Toby from over there came from Nigeria. They didn't know. They had no idea where these people came from. They didn't give a fuck. So the 14th Amendment was to provide citizenship to not just the slaves, but any of the offspring of the slaves that were born on this soil. Because by no fucking action of their own, they were forced to be citizens of the United States, like it or not. And now this jerk off fucking Supreme Court wants to make the argument that citizenship is anybody that spreads their legs and spits out a kid because they're standing on the fucking 2 feet beside the border of Texas. Get the fuck out of here with that. Anyway, that's what I mean. I'm not very good entertainment. I'm pretty much to the point serious. I think what Zane and Maddie and Kaylee need to watch. Yeah, I don't think he's making many excuses. I think he wants to see these people held to account. And I think he made the only saving grace point that I myself made of Ann Taylor. I forget whose stream I was on. Probably Dago. It might have been my own stream. Where after he denied the continuation and he bashed her for taking on a second case, that she said, Your Honor, that without time to review this, I can't provide effective counsel. And he didn't extend her time. I mean, that I'm glad Ray brought that up again, because I remember being, and I said this several times, that if there's any reason to go after the attorney, it's through no fault of her own, right? At the very least, saving grace for her is making that argument for a continuation and being denied. And then he attacks her. Well, why'd you take on another murder case? I don't know. Why do you try fucking 12 different fucking cases a year, Mr. fucking Hippler? What do you sit here and wait for this case? Why does it take a month and a half or 2 months to come back here in a fucking hearing? Oh, that's because you're doing other cases, Hippler. You fucking jerk off. So yeah, a lot of things that guy did are just a bit fucked up. And for a while in the very beginning, he looked very much like he was going to be a very fair juror. And as time went on, it became more and more unbelievable. The whole system is fucked up. The whole system is fucked up from top to bottom, right? From the fucking floor up, it's fucked up. And in all fairness, whether people like it or not, most of the woes and problems in this country is because of fucking lawyers and the games they play. I don't think they should be allowed to settle cases out of court where there's a fucking claim that your product hurt me. Them fucking things should be tried. The people should be aware of what's going on. I mean, the whole judicial system is just whacked the fuck out. It's very, very fucked up. And I don't care if it's politics, if it's fucking suing Walmart for something, or if it's suing between you and me, or it's Brian Kohlberger. We got too busy with our own lives and we trust it. And that's what we're getting for. And that's what we're paying for, that through inappropriately trained, inappropriately fucking created systems, right? Yeah, I think they're going to take another bite at the apple on that fucking, on that ruling. I'll say bye again. Sorry to talk too much sense. I can't help it. Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, we have, folks, a perfect system, but the perfect system of governance and the perfect system of justice is fucked up by the people that are inside of it. Everybody looks for a loophole. Everybody looks for a fucking shortcut. Listen, I'm guilty of that in my own way. I'm absolutely guilty of that in my own way. However, what I do doesn't depend on your freedom, doesn't depend on how much you're going to pay in taxes, doesn't depend on your ability to move, travel, doesn't depend. So what my employment was between me and another person, and in that sense, the only shortcuts I ever took was making sure I could work as little as possible to make as much as I can, but always giving what was promised. Always. I never shorted anybody. I never took advantage of anybody, even when nobody would know. Nobody in the world would have known except me. If it wasn't fair, I wouldn't do it. And that, I don't know why the fuck that's not taught. Why people aren't more on the understanding of it. Maybe it's because of the Asperger's, and I see things in black and white, right and wrong, fair and unfair, good and bad. Maybe it's just because I'm that fucking stupid and I just see things in the most simplest fucking terms. Right? And I said, when I got involved with this particular case, that was the whole point. That probable cause affidavit was the fucking stupidest thing I'd ever read in my life. Thank God they didn't charge me. I'd have choked you to death on your own paperwork. There wasn't a goddamn thing in that allegation that supported anybody at all did anything. It was all exculpatory. I didn't find Cy that hard to listen to. I kind of thought, I kind of respect that the guy, in a reasonable linear fashion, explained his personal points of view. Now, I punched holes in them time. I've disagreed with some of his stuff, but not all of it, folks. I mean, like I said, he's not trying to troll you about fog lights, and he's not coming in these things and telling you the guy wore a shower curtain. Brian Koberger wrapped himself up in a shower curtain. He wrapped his car in a shower. All this other bullshit these people come in to troll you with. At least he stuck to the information he's familiar with. I don't know that he was totally wrong. So they came to an 11-13 Elantra. I think the argument we made, and especially the fact that there was nothing in that car. The defense has a great point that, calling that Brian Koberger's car just can't be done. No, I think he believed me. I think he was sincere. I think if we disagree with Cy Ray, let's try to be more reasonable and realize that he has a perspective based on the data available to him. And we have a different perspective on some of these points that he has. But overall, you've got to agree with the fact that it was a mismanaged investigation, that the case was constructed, not through information found through proper investigation, but forced. And everything they saw had Koberger written all over it. That's not an investigation. I don't disagree with that at all. The FBI, but listen, you got a guy, right, that has a white car that was out driving at that time of night. That's enough to be a suspect. I don't know how carefully you listen to what he was saying. I said that 2 years ago. That's enough reason to be a suspect. You're interviewing all of these people. You're interviewing boyfriends, college acquaintances, neighbors, right? Why the fuck didn't you interview Brian Koberger? Why didn't you? Why wasn't there a trip to where he was at work and catch him at work? Why didn't you knock on his apartment door? Why didn't you investigate Brian Koberger? I think that question's important. And why is everything you saw through the lens that Brian did it? Even when the lens you were looking at you knew was wrong. You fucking knew it wasn't his car heading to Moscow at 2:47 a.m. You knew it. Yet you stuck to it. Those are the things that he's pointing out. That whether Koberger, he believes Koberger did it. I believe Koberger didn't do it. Okay? Okay, so. No, I don't believe Dylan Morrison and Bethany Funk or anything. I just don't. My opinion, based on the data we've all looked at and reviewed, tells me something different. It really tells me so. That footprint outside her door, especially. And they knew, like I pointed this out in my last stream, they knew that footprint had nothing to do with the perpetrator. That's something I wish they would have brought up when he said that there was no cleanup. Well, there certainly fucking was cleanup. The footprint is proof of it. What footprint? The one at Dylan's door. The very footprint that they found the shoe within the residence that matches the footprint. Point A. Point B, the fact that it was a latent print. What does that mean? Well, yeah, it was clean. Mm-hmm. I think Brian Koberger, like I said the other night, was the most convenient, lucky patsy they ever found themselves with. Somebody from out of the area, somebody that does all this late night driving, somebody that's in that area, and then they built the case around it. Someone that owns a white car. Yeah, I don't disagree with that particular analysis at all. Whether he agrees with that or not isn't really relevant. But what he does agree with us on is that the entire case that they built around him is just fraudulent. It's blatant lies. It's omission of fact, which is exculpatory. Right? Making evidence appear inculpatory when it's not. What he's showing you and what he's agreeing with you on is our system is rotten. And he's telling us too, another thing, you guys did hear him say, that this case is far from over. You're going to hear again from this. Not because I've talked to Ann, but because of, you did hear him say that. So let's see how accurate he is in that. I suspect, especially when he brought up that point of Ann, that was a great reminder, because I remember when she had done that in court and Hitler denied it. I didn't know, and I don't think anyone else knew this, and this is crucial. We didn't know that there was a big discovery dump a week before that hearing. Or was it a week before that hearing? I think it was. And then several days after that, he pled guilty. Yeah. We didn't know that there was a huge discovery dump on Ann Taylor. I think she may have said in that hearing that they just released more discovery. Yeah, she should have really pushed and went after Bill Thompson. But again, she's got to work within that system. How do we fix this system? I don't know that we can. I don't know that we can. I don't know what we can do. Honestly, and I said this in the beginning, this is why I made this point. I think the only way for the system to be fixed is for someone that appears guilty or is believed to be guilty be released, because the justice system is just so fucked up they couldn't do anything. There you go. Yeah. Everything they did was just fucked up from the floor up. I think the last dump did have the most damning numbers. I think the last dump, but we don't know. I don't know for a fact. And something else needs to happen too. This would really curtail the games that the prosecution plays. Somebody needs to get a case to the Supreme Court, especially in this digital age, that the information that you're going to use at trial is put digitally in the order in which it's given or taken. And all the information that's not going to be what you use in other subfolders, videos of adjacent addresses. These 11 videos are going to be in the trial. These 77 videos were not. And then you can then go through the 77 videos and look for exculpatory data, right? This cast report, where this data of phone movement we're going to use, these people with phones we're going to use, these people we collected from, all of them were not. This shit needs to be turned over to the defense in a meaningful way. That's not what happens in court, folks. Your justice system don't work that way, but your computers are capable of letting you work that way. And so in the modern age, this just shouldn't be. You shouldn't have to go to fucking hearing after hearing after hearing asking for discovery, because you get one piece of the discovery knowing that leads to something else, but something else hasn't been given to you. So now what do you do? I mean, for fuck, it's like being in the middle of masturbation and you lose both your hands. Now what do you do? Now what? You got to wait for new hands. It's a fucking joke the way the criminal justice system works. That should not be allowed. There's got to be there's got to be some case brought to the Supreme Court or somewhere within the Bar Association where they force prosecutors to work in a way where due diligence is provided to the fucking accused. That's a good question. I don't know. But I suspect that it had information that would have been pertinent 6 months ago, a year ago. That's the infuriating part of the justice system. That in and of itself, the way discovery is distributed by the prosecution. Now, it's like 52 card pickup. You heard what Ann Taylor said. It's like they threw everything up in the air, and now you got to sort through it to find out what's relevant, what's not relevant. That should not be allowed in any court case. Franks, etc. Not one decision. Yeah, he allowed a Franks hearing for reasons that to even get a Franks hearing. The level of information you need to even justify a Franks hearing, and then she gets no decision. Yeah, that judge he ended up being a piece of shit. A little different. I think he stood in the mirror polishing his bald fucking head. Yeah, it's crazy what we saw happen in this case. It's crazy what we seen happen in the Karen Reed case. It's crazy what we saw. Who's that bridge guy? It's crazy what we saw in the Gilgo case. It's crazy with what we saw with a lot of cases. Look what happened in the O.J. Simpson case. It's just, wow. And these are the people that are to serve and protect. These are the people that are going to, serve justice. Right. The way discovery is issued is to sabotage the defense. It's exhausting. Yeah, Richard Allen, thanks. It's exhausting. That's why I say, folks, you're going to commit a crime. Keep it small. This way it's not that fucking this confusing. Don't go doing a quadruple homicide and expect to be defended. I mean, if he would have had a law firm with 100 lawyers, one lawyer representing them, and 100 lawyers there, 200 law clerks, they would have crushed this case. They'd have ran this. They'd have how many of you people? This is an off topic question. How many of you seen that guy get whaled by the fucking bison in Yellowstone National Park? How many of you seen that bison throw that guy 8 feet in the air? Come on, 1 for yeah, 2 for no. Come on, let's hear it. 1 for yeah. You saw that old man get hit with a bison. Bison threw him up in the air. 2, you didn't see it. Tell him. Now, come on, give me a few people. You've seen it, you didn't see it. There's 2 people see it. All right. Well, Miss Q, there's a guy in the Yellowstone National Park that's fucking taking pictures of a bison, and the bison gets pissed and chases him and his grandkid. The old man runs around the trees to try to get away, and the bison chases after him. Eventually, the bison catches up to him. Basically, sticks his horn up his ass and threw him in the air for 8 or 10 feet. Yeah, tell me that wasn't Bill Thompson. I hope that was Bill Thompson. I watched that fucking video to try to identify that guy, and I swear I'm hoping every time I watch it that Bill Thompson on vacation. The newly retired Bill Thompson. Tell me that guy didn't look like Bill Thompson. It's on TikTok. Every time I see it, I'm like, yeah, I sure hope that's Bill Thompson. Well, not for anything. It was not Bill Thompson. I can believe it is. The circumstantial evidence, I'm telling you that's Bill Thompson. I can prove you it's Bill Thompson. Don't you tell me that wasn't Bill Thompson. Are you out of your mind? Becky, you want to go on trial for that? You want to take this one to court? Okay? You put your evidence forward to tell me that it's not Bill Thompson. Go ahead. Go ahead. He's got a long fucking Santa Claus beard, balding on the top of his head. His hair is all white. He's husky. Come on. Come on. Tell me how that ain't Bill Thompson. Come on. I don't know. I think if now Becky's saying it's not, I got all the circumstantial evidence in the fucking world. Bill Thompson, being chased by a 1,200-pound bison, anybody can run that fast. Objection overruled. What else you got? He was wearing Dickies. Yeah, there you go. Come on there, Becky. That was my ex-wife's name, Rebecca. Come on now. Somebody make the case that's not Bill Thompson. I dare you. Circumstantial evidence. Let's sentence this guy to a broken pelvis. Very good. That clip was fucking funny, man. That was fucking epic. Chased down by a bison. Look at my sister, my father got my sister a horse. I don't know how many of you people have seen horses. But he got her a thoroughbred. Okay? And when I tell you that this horse was gigantic, like I used to take on Father's Day, every year for Father's Day, I would take my daughter to ride ponies and visit with the horses. We got a couple of horse farms, right? These horses were half the size of the horse that my father had bought my sister. And I'm telling you that when I went to see the horse, this horse was so big its head went from my knees to the top of my head. It was massive. I was terrified. I was like, what do you mean? That ain't your horse. She's like, yeah, it is. And she walks up and greets it, pets it, and I'm thinking, I ain't going anywhere near that fucking thing. That thing just gets mad and swats you with his head, he'll kill you. I'd never seen a horse that big in my life. But I knew enough to stay back. No, that Bill Thompson didn't. He thought he was going to get images. Oh, let's put this in our scrapbook. Yeah, let's put this away. Come on, look at this little grandson. This is Prosecutor Bill Thompson here in Yosemite National Park. Look at this, son. Snap, 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 snap. Did you hear that guy in the background yelling? Flying through the air with the greatest of these. Moose are even scary. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of some crazy shit. Anyway, Becky, I think you lost your case. I think the jury believes that it, in fact, was built on. And, yeah. Case closed. If he got a pick, he would have called it in a launch. Maybe that was the name of the bison. He nicknamed the bison Elantra. That's a good name for a pet, though, if you think about it. Yeah. Next person to get a dog or a cat, name it Elantra. He did. He looked like, I called him Cracker Claws right from the very beginning. Nobody seemed to like that. Some guy was honking a horn. No, man, isn't the one who started the trouble. Well, hey, he got what Bill Thompson had coming to him. Okay, let's be clear. Whether that's I don't know. But on the fact that my circumstantial evidence isn't real proof, he absolutely got what Bill Thompson had coming to him. A horn up in the ass and a fucking fling 10, 12 feet in the air. Yeah, he took the horn for old Billy Boy, Cracker Claus. There you go. That'd be a good name for a pet, Elantra, right? Don't name your kids that, for God's sake. Oh, but a pet. I think there needs to be a new term. They say Murphy's Law. I think it should be Kohlberger's Law. I named him Cracker Claus the first time I seen him. Yes. We're here for the plea deal of Mr. Kohlberger, and I want to be clear that we have absolutely no fucking evidence at all connecting him to this crime. And I want to be clear about that. Not electronically, not in video, not in any witness statement. But my threat of fucking firing squad got him to plead guilty. Thank you, Your Honor. He got Kohlberger. Yeah. Idaho. What's this? I think it's police dogs at the north, I think. Now maybe they can include Elantra. Yeah, that'd be a good name for a dog. Female dog. Elantra. Yeah. Maybe one of those big poodles. I haven't read about it. I don't know what led up to the attack, but if you guys, the videos, there's T-shirts, there's all kinds of shit being made of that guy being flung in the air. That's just fucking happened. Who was filming it? Yeah, I said that in the beginning too. That now that touch transfer DNA is going to be setting a new fucking precedent. I said that way in the beginning. The danger of this case, right? The danger in this case is that new precedents would be set. The bar of fucking information has been lowered. Now they're going to go into a fucking shooting inside of a grocery store, and yes, your child will be arrested because your child's fucking transfer DNA was found on the counter at the cashier. I think I have that new raw veggie parasite. What the? Oh my God. How the hell do you get a rare? What? That's terrible. How do you get rid of a parasite? Oh, ivermectin? I don't know. I don't know what is real or dream. I guarantee you that old man knows what's real. Old Bill Thompson caught that horn perfectly. Yeah, that horn, that fucking bison said, bend over, buddy. So how the hell do you get a parasite? Holy shit. Oh my God, I'm not going to think. I'm not, well, I do like sweet corn. Sweet corn's a veggie, right? What kind of veggies were you eating? Give us a heads up. Were you eating broccoli? What were you eating? Psycho something. Yeah, everything got a crazy. Yeah, I don't want to catch no parasite. I got other things I got to do. Yeah, parasites can't be good. How do you get rid of a parasite? It hit 35 states. Well, I'll tell you what, there's also a problem with the ticks. I see people taking pictures of deer in their yard. You got to be out of your goddamn mind. You don't go pet deer. You don't feed deer. Unbelievable. Oh, yeah, well, no, I don't watch the news. Antibiotics are supposed to help, hopefully, but I think that there's probably, if you got a parasite from a vegetable, then there's some kind of fucking medicine that you can take that would actually go right after the parasite. Yeah, ivermectin. I told you what to take. Ivermectin is a prescription anti-parasitic medication that paralyzes and kills parasites by disrupting their nerve and muscle function. It's FDA approved to treat for humans to treat river blindness, intestinal threadworms, head lice, scabies. It must only be so. There you go. Your Dr. Sarge just cured you. Takes 2 months to get rid of. 2 months. What are you, a breeding ground for a parasite now? What? You're like I don't even know. Yeah, man, I'm not eating lettuce either. I think it's in the water. They're not cleaning the water and recycling it. I don't know about that. I don't know. On the line of heat stroke, I was trying dehydration in the max. Yeah. Well, I'm in New York, and I tell you, people don't realize the danger of ticks either. And they go up to deer because the deer are friendly. Well, yeah, that friendly deer gets you a tick, you'd be in trouble, man. You got to stay away from wild animals. I think all wild animals can transfer that stuff. You don't fuck with birds. Don't fuck with that stuff, man. Arizona, you finally got rain. Look at that. Don't you guys need rain? Aren't you going to run out of water with the Hoover Dam pretty soon, whatever state that's in? Yeah, you guys need some water over there. What the hell? All right, well, look. I'll finish with this. It's not often that you can agree with everything somebody says, right? It's very, very seldom you can agree with everything somebody says. And his points of view and perspective, I understand them. On many of them, I'm in disagreement with him. I think that there's legitimate points of fact that I don't think he's considered. But I don't have any issue with the guy. I think, we were told for the longest time, where's Twiz? Somebody bring that Twiz in here. Telling us that he was down in some park or something. He was in Lewiston. And now we're finding out that doesn't seem likely. So where's the Twiz? With his one-on-one with Cy Ray before, he's been telling us that for a couple of years. We got to have a little chit chat with Twizzle Stick. Mikey, thanks for coming in, real Mike. Later, be good. You made some good points for sure. Tried to highlight them when I seen them. So, I'll highlight your getting out of here. There you go. I don't know. You didn't agree with anything he said. Are you kidding me? He said some things that are definitely supportive and some points that we've been focusing on. Are you serious? Wiz is now flip-flopping, I think. You got to stop thinking these experts are the end-all and be-all. I agree, Chief. I agree. What, you're seeing Twiz saying that BK did it now? He didn't change that much. Did he? Ray didn't punk us, not even close. Ray gave you the opinion of the information he's privy to. And that's all it is. But he also told you that there's so many mistakes in this case and so many problems with the investigation of the prosecution that he don't think this case is over. He thinks, in fact, it's far from over. And you gotta think that there's a highly likelihood maybe there is some information there. Lettuce and berries. What about watermelon? Because I was going to go buy watermelon and corn on the cob tomorrow. I got a big 2-inch thick porterhouse steak. Yeah. So what is that? Ray is a transformer. No, I don't think so. Listen, just because you disagree with somebody, there's also, by listening to people you disagree with, sometimes you learn things. No, they're not. That's their view. I agree. I disagree with that point of view vehemently. However, right. He did say that too, folks. And I pointed that out many times over this period. He reserved the right to change his opinion. He went into the case thinking Brian was guilty. He's already told us that. He still thinks Brian's guilty. And there's nothing wrong with someone thinking that. When he lays out the facts in the order that he's viewed them, then, so he sees the facts, the car, the phone activity, the delivery of the DoorDash. He sees all of that in a line, in a sequence of events, and okay. And then you got to add the DNA they found on the sheet, which is also interesting to find out that the 4 brothers are part of the family tree of Brian Kohlberger. I didn't know that. I heard that, didn't know it to be true, but that's interesting to know that that's actually true. So I don't know that he was, yeah. So there's no question that DNA is Brian's. I thought maybe I was crazy because everyone else liked him, so I tried to give him a chance. Man, I'm not. His book, I knew his book was not going to be a Brian Kohlberger book. I think that's been said openly that it wasn't going to be a book about the Kohlberger case. It's a book that law enforcement would want to read. Yeah, man. That these things going around, we don't need that nonsense. I meant to say I wasn't a fan from the get-go with Ray. No, I've talked to Twiz over this period of time a lot, and I told him I there's things he said I don't believe. And I'd say it to him. He knows when he knows people that are close to this person or that person. I don't go along with that. I'd like to see the facts, the truth, or the people that are making these claims come forward, or otherwise shut the fuck up. Right? So that's kind of how I roll. So anyway, it's been an hour and 23 minutes, folks. It's 11:24 p.m. in the western part of New York State. I wasn't a fan from the get-go. So I wasn't a fan or a non-fan. However, he did get a lot of play. And he has shown for sure tonight that they knew until June one year, they knew that their PCA was wrong. That they pushed the timeline on a vehicle that absolutely couldn't be Brian Kohlberger. And they stuck with that. Yeah, but his book is for professionals. His book isn't designed for us to read as like Christopher Whitcomb. Not even close. That's not his book. Yeah, he is not writing a book. No, it's not toilet paper. I mean, you know, I don't know. I'm not going to trash Cy Ray no more than I'm going to trash Whitcomb or I'm going to trash Turvey. All of which have said some questionable things that I don't agree with, and that's just the way it is. Although they've also added bits and pieces of information unavailable to us. You know, when he talks about hair, I don't know, but we've seen the pictures of the hair and the amount of hair in that guy's hand, poor Ethan, and the amount of hair on the bed. It's just, there's no way you could call that debris. I disagree with his synopsis of the hair. So, so there is that too. I think the hair evidence where he went after Turvey, I think, we've seen the pictures, right? Somebody has to have those pictures. And I don't believe at all that it was a strand of hair. And whether he was referring to the girls upstairs room or he was referring to Ethan. But there was a significant amount of hair there in his hand. And there was a significant amount of hair in the blood that pooled down the side of the bed against the rail of the bed. So, you know, I disagree with his analysis of that. Right. I don't know that he's really looked at it. I didn't. I disagree with a lot of the things he said, but I do understand those are his views of what he was exposed to or what he thinks or what he claims he saw or heard about. I don't know what he saw, but I know the pictures that we were shown. I think it was in Whitcomb's. Where was it? No, maybe it wasn't even Whitcomb's book. But I'm right in saying there was a picture of hair in Ethan's hand. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Design rhythm. Yeah, so he does have a misunderstanding of some facts, and that probably helps form his opinion, right? And that's you know, it is what it is. That, you know, I don't think he's shrilling for the prosecution. Yeah, I don't think he's stupid either. And I don't think, you know, he's definitely pointing out all you know, there's a lot of problems with this case that have got nothing to do with whether Koberger did it or not. And that's been my perspective the entire time. You guys have tolerated me, and I'm sure I've come up with some crazy fucking shit, right? Yeah. He pulled the sympathy card for defendant Dylan with his daughters. I mean, come on. Yeah, no, I think if your view is that Koberger did that, I think you'll make explanations for yourself. You know, that's how it works. We do the same thing on our side, folks. It's nothing to be upset about, or, you know, it is what it is. Yeah, the parachuting on the balcony was awesome. That came from that drip drop guy. He shimmied across the tree branch from an old pine tree, a tree branch that was about 1.5 inches thick. And Brian Koberger shimmied, or the perpetrator shimmied across the tree branch to the upper rear balcony. Isn't that his name? Drip Drop? I don't know his name. I don't like that guy. With the mask? I don't know. That's what I've always called him. Drip Drop. What's his name? Some theories are just crazy, whether they be for innocence or guilt. The tunnels, yeah, the tunnels that never existed. Crime circuit, Drip Drop, yeah. Yeah, what are you going to do? People in the trees, people parachuting in. Oh, yeah. Yep, some crime circus, Drip Drop. All right, folks, listen, it's been a joy. It's been an hour and a half. I talk too damn much. But that's my synopsis on Cy Ray. Neither good nor bad. And that's the way it is. Everyone be good. Stay out of trouble. If you're going to get in trouble, do something simple. Don't do some Koberger bullshit. Good God. Although that would be profitable for many streamers, except me, of course. Anyway, good night. Be good. Talk to you.